Hello fellow preppers. We're going to do a tour of portions of our homestead today for OPSEC reasons that you would well understand. We might not go into everything, but we're going to hit the highlights. There's only one drawback to this amazing property. It took us about 3 years to find. So we're going to start with it because it is also located in my favorite part of the property. It's the upper acreage where the hayfield and the fruit groves are located. Here's one of the fruit groves. It's the youngest one. We have apple and pear and peach and cherry trees growing in there. And there's also grapes growing alongside it, another partitioned off area. That's just a simple electric fence that my Bobby and his buddy Maddie and I and Maddie's significant other put in. Didn't take any time at all, just step-in stakes and a solar energizer there. Was a very inexpensive way to keep the horses out of it. Didn't work for the goats, but they don't venture up here that often. This is my favorite part of the property. One, because it's just gorgeous and it's the best place if you need cell service to go. But also because you can look around in any direction that you want. You don't see civilization of any kind. There's no roads, no neighbors, no power lines, no streets. Our property boundary goes a little bit beyond those trees. There's a fence line that we worked on for months. This property came completely fenced in, all 56 plus whatever portion of an acre there is, with 5 or 6 strand barbed wire on wood posts that were cut from the property with some T-posts mixed in, but it was all in poor repair. It would have been easier to just snip all the fencing out and start over, but that would have been a lot more expensive. So we spent months, probably if you totaled it all up, close to a year, refencing everything in, detangling, cutting trees back, moving trees off of sections that fell over, cutting out barbed wire that had intertwined through it. It was quite an endeavor. But this most beautiful, perfect section of the property, and from no area of our property but right at the driveway at the bottom, can you see another home. The only drawback, which in my mind is a major drawback, you can see right here, there's pipeline access. That was one reason I wanted to turn around and walk off this property that was otherwise perfect when we got it. I didn't want anything that had any kind of an utility easement to it. My husband said that pipeline had been there for 40 years. It hadn't ever been a problem. They're not going to touch it now. Well, he'll spend the rest of his life trying to live down that comment, because they are just now getting ready to do a pipeline expansion. The pipeline expansion is not going to take up any more of our land or create any extra problems with an easement. It's still existing easement. They are staying on where they are already. They are just going to upgrade some piping. They had enough space. They could run another pipeline. But it does mean that they want a temporary access road. Our property, because of where it's situated, is the only remotely feasible way to reach other properties in the pipeline for about 3 to 5 miles in either direction. I didn't like the idea of the gas company being on the property for, they said 2 months, but likely with weather, other breakdowns, or typical things that happen with any kind of a construction job, 4 months. Especially because the road they drive up now once every 3 months in a pickup truck to check on their pipeline goes right by the house. I mean, within 3 feet of the house. I didn't want their big trucks rolling through. I didn't want that intrusion on our privacy, safety issues with our free-range livestock, grandchildren, tribes, people's children running around, what have you. So I found an alternative route that I thought would work along the edge of our property. And it did work out well, much less intrusive, much less of a privacy issue. It is temporary, and it netted us about 40 grand. So that's a lot of money for preps and improvements to this property we got at a bargain basement price that needed it. Not ideal, don't like it, but this property was perfect in so many ways, including the price. I decided to deal with the gas company issue when we bought it, and then we had this come up, and you could have just floored me. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. But we worked it to our advantage as best as we could. It's temporary and, no further intrusions on our property, so it is what it is. Now this section of property over here is not ours. I would like for it to be, and we're working on that. It was part of what this farm used to be. This farm used to be 100 and some acres, purchased before the county was even formed. And it's up for sale by the heirs. There's some fighting and back taxes issues. But I think we might be able to get a few of the acres bordering our property on either side to increase our hay pasture area, to increase the privacy. But this pipeline does cause me concern when the shit does hit the fan, because it would be a way that people could get access to the property starting on the pipeline on foot, on horseback, on ATV, and just go in it for miles, because it would keep them off the road. They could move. You couldn't do it all in a pickup truck. You couldn't do it all in an ATV, not the way our hills are around here. I don't think you could get onto our property with an ATV unless you were really desperate, which people could. But even then, even for an experienced rider on horseback or an ATV, there are sections of it coming from the south that it will be impossible. From the north, you possibly could. You'd have to get on roadways, several ways to be able to do it. But I still consider it an issue, and there would have to be lookouts. I think we pull a camper up here on this end, and as you'll see in a minute, there's a deer treehouse stand at the other end, which would make a good LP/OP spot. The backwoods behind us aren't ours. There's no homes for miles. There's some eclectic hippie group from the city that's rather wealthy, and they own that and come down 3 or 4 times a year and do nudity swims or whatever, I don't know. So that's land that's not really used. And the other portion to the back of it that way, it's logging by a local person. They have it to forest. They've not ever worked up this far. It's not somebody that I would be concerned with, and nobody living in it. And a very far portion on the corner section over there, when you get to the other part of the pipeline access, are people that aren't tribes members, but would probably be incorporated into our group because of location and skills and the type of livestock that they keep. You know, they're friendly neighbors with a lot of country skills that would be beneficial to network with, to almost to a tribe type degree when something would happen.